black and brown one.
And there's another one that's black.
Yes, so there is.
The Boyle family has been farming sheep for generations.
How many did you say there was, Al?
600.
Their business in York, north of Perth, is one of the biggest producers in the live export market. But it's an industry hanging in the balance.
There's been huge ramifications since Labor won the election, when it created huge uncertainty with the exporters.
We sort of jumped through all the hoops that they placed in front of us, and then in the end, you know, we've met all these criteria. As far as we're aware, everything seems to be running well, and then we'd get shut down again.
Hi everyone, let's try to keep you waiting. I'm announcing the start of a consultation process about how and when we will implement our election commitment to phase out the live sheep export trade.
The Albanese government says it has a mandate to end live exports after taking the commitment to last year's federal election. Last week, Federal Agriculture Minister Murray Watt announced an independent panel will undertake a 6-month consultation process before reporting on how and when live sheep exports will cease.
I think the Australian people would expect us to get on and implement that election commitment, and that's exactly what we're doing. Thanks a lot.
He's prepared to throw West Australian sheep producers under the bus, just totally under the bus. You know, there's over 5,000 sheep producers in Western Australia, over 5,000 of them. The value of this trade is over $80 million. And to say, sitting in that isolated tower in Canberra, that he's going to do this, he's got no understanding of the damage and the harm he's going to do to sheep producers in this state.
Labor first made the pledge to end live sheep exports ahead of the 2019 election, following the deaths of 2,400 sheep on a ship from Fremantle to the Middle East in 2017. That prompted a ban on exporting sheep there during the northern summer.
Nobody is proud of what happened, and certainly that was an outlier, it was an accident, but that's behind us now. The change in the regulations around live export have been absolutely staggering. You know, vets on board, video footage, reporting to Canberra. Any ship that has a loss of over 1% is a reportable incident.
We're still talking about the inherent stress of putting a sheep on a ship for 3 to 4 weeks. That's stressful in itself, even at a very low stocking density, even with all the other things that they are trying to do. We know that that 3 to 4 weeks is going to be very stressful.
The routine on a live export vessel is one of the most important parts of the day.
Holly Ludeman works as a livestock vet for export companies.
I'm out on deck this afternoon and you can see the crew feeding the livestock.
And is an industry spokesperson for improving standards and transparency.
It's really important to keep a routine for the sheep and people.
The last few years we've had the introduction of the moratorium, so sheep are no longer exported at the time of year where there is high risks. So that has alleviated the heat stress risks, and we're seeing excellent animal welfare outcomes on the voyages as well. So we don't just look at mortality, the industry is investing in looking at animal welfare indicators. So how are the animals coping in their environment? They're drinking, they're eating, they're resting, and there's reports sent to the federal government every day on that.
Last financial year, Australia exported close to 500,000 sheep, all from Western Australia. The industry, valued at around $85 million, employs around 3,500 people. In a statement to 7:30, WA Agriculture Minister Jackie Jarvis said the federal government has confirmed there will be no changes during this term of government, but we need more certainty on what a transition plan may look like. Nationals MP David Littleproud was the Federal Agriculture Minister when the mass deaths happened. He's insisting that the Coalition continues to support the live export trade.
I've made it very clear to Peter Dutton that the condition of our future Coalition government will be to reinstate the live export of sheep from Western Australia, and he's very comfortable with that. He understands that while we're two parties, he understands that there's a purity of purpose of the National Party in representing regional rural Australia.
This is the central quarantine area where that comes in from all over the state. So when it's full, we're going to have about 50,000 in these areas.
And where are they all going?
Predominantly to Kuwait, but anywhere in those Gulf countries that our company will be supplying into Kuwait.
Murray Frangs is the General Manager of Rural Export and Trading WA, a subsidiary of state-owned company Kuwait Livestock Transport and Trading.
I have the job of trying to explain what the government's position is to my owners in the Gulf. So certainly the immediate ramifications are disappointment, a lot of loss of trust and confidence in the industry. It'll force some changes as to where they source the sheep from, because they have to have something that's reliable.
Why has it got to be live?
So live is for the fresh meat. Well, certainly my company, we've invested over $100 million in the last few years just building a brand new slaughterhouse in the Gulf, purely for expecting the live animals to continue to be delivered.
We have the best animal welfare standards in the world, and by shutting it down, they're simply handing it to countries that have lesser standards.
There's different welfare expectations from different countries. However, at the end of the day, we are really concerned about the Australian sheep, and that's what we're in control of, and we should be doing better.
I think the recent decision or progression of Labor's policy to phase out the trade is really disappointing. And that commitment hasn't taken into account the significant improvements made all along the supply chain in animal welfare.
This is going to be an important document.
Last week, a letter signed by 25 peak industry groups, including the National Farmers Federation and Cattle Australia, argued the ban represents a red line that cannot be crossed.
The most significant signatory there is the National Farmers Federation. Now, they have a fighting fund.
There's now talk of a legal challenge.
When you do this amount of harm to an industry without them having any recourse whatsoever, obviously we're going to look to see if there is any legal recourse now to do something about that. I think if the Minister thinks that he's just signed off on the WA live export industry, he's naive. This industry will fight like hell.
Is a court challenge a serious possibility?
It's a very uncomfortable avenue to have to take, but yes, it's on the cards. I mean, the alternative is to roll over and just let it happen.